Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP, and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. Nashville native Eric Holt was one of the 5 founding members of Love Noise, the concert promotion company that made a lasting impact on Music City starting in the early 2000s. Love Noise began by providing much-needed performance spaces for local hip-hop, soul, and R&B artists and their fans. You can hear a deep dive into Love Noise and the history behind the current black music scene by listening to the now fully released Making Noise series, a co-production between WPLN and WNXP, hosted by WPLN senior music writer Julie Hight. But here's the thing. Eric's story isn't just in the past. He continues to run Love Noise, rep several artists, and he also is teaching the next generation of music promoters and execs as a professor of music business at Belmont University. We've got both Eric and Julie with us today to tell us about what it was like working together to tell the story of Love Noise and its continuing impact up till today. Eric and Julie, welcome back to This Is Nashville. How you guys doing?
Great. Thank you.
Good.
Wonderful.
Good to be here.
All right, we've got a lot to get into. Let's start with the big picture. We're here, Nashville. It's known as Music City. For a lot of people, the music of Music City has been one thing, country music, sung by mostly white artists. That doesn't really reflect the real history or the current status of this place as a city creatively in the music space. Since that narrative has been so well established, tell us, Eric, tell me, what has been excluded from the rich tapestry of music here in this town?
Well, a big part of the history for Nashville is, one, the name itself, Music City, like where it came from. And that story's been told many times. The Fifth Jubilee Singers touring the world. They went to England, and Queen said, "You must come from a city of music." The newspapers printed that the next day, and then that moniker kind of stuck, right? Got repurposed, with country music. But going back to Fifth Jubilee Singers and Jefferson Street specifically, where Fifth sits, there were tons of very successful Black-owned music venues that was a part of the Chitlin circuit well before the success of country music in this town. And it was a very important part to American music, R&B, rhythm and blues, and it was a very necessary city to play. And that history isn't told as clearly and as boldly as the country music narrative.
Now, Julie, as a music reporter, you've got an eye on what stories are out and about going on here in Nashville. Why does Nashville's musical narrative matter so much?
I mean, it matters because that is something that is shaped and shared around the world, that defines how the outside world looks at Nashville. I mean, it's something that drives perception and tourism and, that kind of thing. There's a real power to the narratives that reign and that tower kind of over everything. I mean, that's something that I thought a lot about diving into this story, because I was thinking about, what are the narratives that I am in my professional position expected to serve and uphold and that kind of thing, and that take up so much space. And, I mean, we're not trying to say all of that is invalid. We're just saying it is simply incomplete if you don't center. I mean, this is an important history of the last 20 years that also touches back to a more historical era that Eric was talking about on Jefferson Street too. I mean, that is simply part of the narrative that needs to, that people need to know. People in the city, people who've been here, people who are new to the city, and I mean, people who are curious about Nashville and watching from the outside world and have been, that their perception of Nashville has been shaped by only what they've seen and only what they've heard. So we are offering to help complete the narrative.
Tell me, where did the original idea for the Making Noise podcast come from?
I mean, partly it came from watching artists over time and watching two generations of artists over time. You know, I mean, I did a story on what was essentially kind of the first generation of R&B and soul artists participating in Love Noise for NPR several years ago that had Mike Hicks in it and Imani Wilkins and Jason Eskridge and that kind of thing. And then I was watching individual artists of the next wave, the next generation rising up, getting serious, you know, really doubling down on their ambitions and looking at how, you know, like what are the common denominators in empowering those artists? Love Noise, you know? And then when I realized, when Eric and I had coffee in late 2022 and I realized that the 20th anniversary of Love Noise was coming up, I thought, that deserves some kind of serious treatment, some kind of serious story, but I didn't yet know that it was going to be a podcast quite yet.
Now, Eric, you grew up around music makers. Your uncle Freddie Waters, was a popular performer on Jefferson Street, and your brothers and your cousin, they make music. Your mom was a beloved TSU professor. Your uncle was a judge, kind of like Nashville royalty in a sense. How did your family legacy come together and inspire you to kind of set out on the path to start Love Noise?
Well, you know, I always, from very young, loved music. My older brother was a musician. My younger brother was a musician. As they made music around me, I tried to jump in, and they would kick me out the room because I'm horrible.
Okay.
Well, what were you playing?
Whatever they did, I tried to do and could not do it.
Okay.
And but, you know, I've always been a decent organizer, good at business. And so, you know, bringing those elements together and helping organize that, I've kind of always kind of been that element in my family. And having, I say, the opportunity and like luxury to be around music and help lift it up, I've always enjoyed that. And so my family, you know, has always been supportive of me and my ventures. And honestly, from the beginning, even before Love Noise with B. Hill, I mean, it was a family venture. My brother producing it, and Brandon Hill being the artist, and, you know, we all coming together with our talents, and my older brother consulting on some of the music too. It's always been those elements. Julie, in one of the interviews she did with me, I was explaining to her one of the secret elements to Love Noise was part of the curation were my brothers. Like, they could sniff out a really good musician and artist a lot better than I could. And so they would say, yo, you need to book Mike Hicks, or hey, this young guy over here, have you heard him yet? No. And I would go check it out, and sure enough, they'd be amazing, and we'd pull them in. So it was always connections and feels. And even to this day, I need a band, I need a drummer, I need a bass player, or whatever. I hit those guys up and they can plug it in.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, Julie, when did you first hear about Love Noise?
I mean, I haven't been able to exactly put my finger on that, but I mean, it's just, I feel like I've been getting emails forever, like on the email list about shows, you know? So it's just really hard to pinpoint what year that would have been, because it just feels like we live in the world of Love Noise. So yeah, I mean, that has defined my entire time in Nashville. Watching, following music, writing about music has been, I mean, in the Love Noise era. So yeah, I've been on the email list for a long time and associating Love Noise with bringing amazing music to the city that you wouldn't be able to hear otherwise.
Let's take a listen to a clip we have from the Making Noise series about Love Noise. Here it is.
Oh, yeah. They made us.
Nashville.
Yeah.
We want to build a culture. If you could build a culture and people buy into your culture, you'll be around forever. And so we just didn't want to touch you just with the audible. We wanted to make sure we can take control of all your five senses. That's why we burn incense. That's why we dapped you up. You smell like us after we finished you dapping you up, because we was putting the
Oils.
We was putting the oils on, frankincense, Egyptian musk, pheromone. We had
People
a
still say, man, people
Yeah.
still say, like, if I wear oils, so like, man, you smell like Love Noise.
Right.
We were very methodical in what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
In their younger years, these guys went all out to cultivate a vibe. You're hearing them affectionately roast their old signature fragrance, but the Love Noise culture they're referring to, it's really about a sound.
We haven't, as a group,
gone this deep on Love Noise in a very, very, very long time. So this is
Have we ever?
They're looking back on something they put in motion 20 years ago. Love Noise, the weekly open mic style spoken word neo soul and conscious hip hop party that was so very 2003, incense and all. And Love Noise, the concert promotion outfit they'd grow to be. Behind it were these five. Eric Holt, who booked artists and dealt with venues. The Money Guy, Bryce Page. Chip Hockett handled marketing and sent out the street team. LaSalle Chapman, who played host and created flyers.
LaSalle, I believe you were colorblind at the time, or you are still. I'm not at the time, still colorblind, right? But we didn't understand how he was able to help design the flyers.
And Antoine Nunn, aka Mo, aka DJ Soundboy, who worked the turntables back then and makes sure his co-founders keep it real now.
All right, I'm gonna give you their real names. That's Skip, that's B Rice, that's Sally Poe, and that's E. There you have it.
They were bound for serious things, like putting on concerts so notable that they made the local news.
What happened with that? What did you make the news for?
I don't know what she was referring to, but
That was the Nas and the Nashville Symphony
the Nas
with
show.
at Ascend with Tim Gent opening. Yeah,
Okay.
that's just one example.
over the 20 years, we've been in the news a lot. All
Right.
good stuff.
Oh, good stuff.
yeah. No bad stuff.
All right. So speaking of 20 years, you were planning a 20-year celebration of Love Noise. Then you first heard from Julie about this podcast series, and it includes an oral history about Love Noise. What'd you think about it when Julie first came to you to talk about the idea?
Well, when she initially, came to me, I was, flattered and honored to even think that we could have a deep dive into what we've been doing. But also a sense of hesitation, came over me as well. And mainly because I had this sense that, this will be like a conclusion, like a closing of a book. And I had to get over those types of feelings and really tap into, even though we were not doing it for legacy reasons, we have built a legacy. Like, you can't undo that. And the way she articulated to me and really spoke to me the most clear, she said, Eric, Love Noise is a part of Nashville music history, and it needs to be codified. It needs to be recorded and told. And I trusted her enough to give her the reins to do it, and she blew my mind. She killed it. Well, you guys, the whole team, all of you guys really did an amazing job.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekalona. We're talking this hour about Love Noise, the promotions group that helped give Black music a platform here in Nashville. My guests are Eric Holt and Julie Hight. Okay, so Julie, how did producing this work? How did producing this podcast build on the other work you've done on hip hop and R&B here in Nashville?
I mean, I was able to reflect back on moments when I first came to know, especially artists of the newer generation that we talk about in episode 4. I mean, this gave me a chance to reflect back on the first time I ever met and sat down with, talked with Tim Gent and with Bryant Taylor, with A.B. Eastwood, with so many of these artists and voices, because that was happening right around the same time that they were trying to get Eric and Love Noise's attention and support. I got to think back on, the moments that I had seen and observed and realize what was important about those moments too, and circle back to things that I had heard Mike Hicks and Jason Eskridge and, artists of that first generation say, and connect all of those dots, and then there was so much. I mean, Eric and the co-founders of Love Noise, they just really did a lot of work going back into the archives, which is that's so important when you want to tell a story in a sound rich way, and getting all of these, live recordings of performances from 20 years ago or almost 20 years ago, and all this, unreleased music or hard to find music from B Hill and Biscuits and Gravy and that kind of thing. I mean, that was so essential to telling the story and letting people experience it with their ears too. So it was kind of like pulling from my own archives and body of work and the kind of, I mean, Marquise Munson was one of the producers on it. And I mean, we talked throughout about like, this is, we are trying to all the time follow these scenes and individual artists. And this is what it looks like to take that mission and, take it all the way to telling a big picture story that's full of individual voices that all own a piece of it too.
Now, Eric, I heard you all were throwing listening parties over the last few Thursdays to listen to the Making Noise podcast. All the original members got together. What did that look like? What was that like as you sat with the other 4 founding members to listen to this legacy that you all created?
The way we did it, we wouldn't listen to it beforehand, come sit down and listen to it live as it's played in the evening. And, as it played out, we were silent as, the stories were pulled out. I remember one time we punched pause and looked at each other. It's like, man, that statement was huge. Like even the way you just introduced that, Love Noise, one of the entities responsible for Black music in Nashville, like these big statements. And even though it may be true, it's still, it's a lot, And so we took it all in. And, one of the questions in one of the meetings, Bryce, he asked us, he said, Eric, did you think that it would be this impactful as we were doing it? And he went around the room and asked everybody the question, and none of us thought that. I said this last night at the event. We really were focused. The next week, making it better than the last week. Mm-hmm. The next year, make it better than the last year. When we first did the big shows, that was out of one of the meetings saying, what do you want to do this year? Let's do bigger concerts. That was the mission. Let's do bigger concerts. So we had Music Soul Child, we had Raheem Devine, and we put all these things into it. And we were goal-driven, like in small increments, but not some grand scheme to, in 20 years, we'll be doing this and da-da-da-da. It just kind of naturally, because I think the energy was, authentic in that we really just wanted the artists to have a platform for Nashville to be able to experience Black culture in a safe environment.
Julie mentioned the fact that you all had the archives. Ton of archives. What was it like going back, pulling the photos, finding the original flyers, listening to some of those recordings that you captured live?
It was a lot too, because those boxes had not been opened literally probably a decade. Some of those things had dust on them literally inside the boxes. And some of the things like there was a photo album with a lot of the clippings, news clippings. I didn't know Chip's wife had done that. I had never seen it. So going back and reading the newspaper clippings and looking at some of those flyers, she caught a moment where we all are kind of amazed that we had the first flyer, like of actual, physical representation. And it's just a flood of memories, coming back when we were editing that flyer with, redoing the address and all these other things. And, it's 20 years of memories, so it was a lot. It was a lot, yeah. But it was proud of it, proud of it.
Yeah, I get that. Now, Julie, last question for you. Reporter's work is never done. Any questions that you've been wanting to ask Eric that you haven't had a chance to?
Well, yeah. I mean, at this point, I would love to hear from you what surprised you, or really how has it made you look at the last 20 years of work and investment differently, like hearing us try to pull it together in one story like this?
One of the phrases, is this sense of gratitude, just the opportunity to be able to contribute to a community that you value and you care a lot about. So that it's humbling, when you get to that. But looking back at it, really looking at it as a legacy. So like moving forward, it's like we have to take care of this thing, And I think prior to listening to this body of work that you guys created, I didn't look at it like that. It was just, again, kind of like, let's do a bigger show than Nas. Let's do a better show than, PJ Morton at the Ryman, And so looking forward, it's maybe more of a delicate approach, and this is important. This is important. Every piece of it is important, because when you do these types of productions and you do these types of things over years, you're also inspiring other people. So you want to make sure that you're a good example. You want to make sure that it's something that is sustainable and hopefully can be reproduced by younger, smarter kids, than us. Yeah.
Julie Hight is WPLN senior music reporter. Julie, thanks so much for being with us, and thanks for bringing Making Noise to reality.
Thanks for having me.
Eric Holt is going to stick with us through the break. When we come back, we'll be talking with rapper Brian Brown to hear what it was like for a younger artist and his generation to step forward on the path that Love Noise had built. We'll be right back.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. Eric Holt and the original Love Noise crew laid the groundwork that made a real difference for artists and performers they knew and loved. But their impact didn't stop there. Both the doors and stages they opened and the lessons they learned and willingly passed forward benefited the next generation coming up behind them. One of those rising artists, Brian Brown, knew about Eric Holt and Love Noise, and he took a bold chance to step towards his dream at a Love Noise event. Let's drop into Big Gip by Brian Brown.
So right now, just this time, would you put your hands high? Dust them shoulders off. Got the weight of this world on mine. Be strong, don't get me wrong. Get some heavy lifting, but we gotta raise the bar. Shame, but things are sickening. Guess your boy fit for it. 10 toes on these dreams. Starting to feel real, though. All that as it seems. And I wouldn't change them bit. Somehow just getting started in this. But photo, there's no more, they just sit in the section, act like they got it, art of deception. Luckily for you, steady grooving around here. Better keep them 2 left feet far away from me and here. Let's get it right, let's believe something gon' shake. Only way to go is up, if you down with us. Step by step, side to side, all in stride. We been working since this morning, let's make it a night, yeah. Maybe I deserve like change. Tell little baby, please don't go. Trying to figure how she think. Got my mind gone, said rebel, I'm on another level. Curly head in that red dress, heard I'm him, let her tell it. Professor X, how my wrist working. Blowing on some buttercup, wood power puffing. By any means, get this green or them blues. Ain't he worried about the hue.
We've got Brian Brown here with us right now. Brian, welcome back to This Is Nashville.
Hey, thank you for having me, good sir. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Good to have you here. Okay, you grew up as a performer from a real young age.
Yes, sir.
And you got an early opportunity to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Here at a hometown event that Love Noise was involved with. Tell me about that story.
So, picture it, like the lady from Golden Girls would say.
Okay.
Picture it. 2014, that winter. Were you managing Floss at the time?
Yeah, co-managing Mike Floss.
He was going as open mic at the time. He had his release show for the Rebels 2 going that day. And my DJ at the time, DJ GB, Indiana native, but went to Fisk University, happened to be the house DJ for the evening. They needed somebody to sound check, but Mike nor the other rappers were there. So I just took a kind of risk and thought, hey, GB, let me just follow me real quick. And I also had a show coming up around that same time.
Okay.
Did a couple of my songs, sound checked it. He was in the crowd, in the audience, looking very important, and I saw him like nodding his head, going along with it. I was like, all right, I think it's working. As soon as I get off stage, Eric goes, hey man, really nice, really impressive. I was like, thank you, man, appreciate it. Hadn't met him before, hadn't met him up until that moment, but he's like, very impressive. Maybe like 5-10 minutes later, he goes, hey, you interested in Outkast in a tribute show? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, I got something coming up. Because at the time, they were doing the tribute shows at Club Anthem for the Museum for African American Music. All the proceeds and donations went to the help me raise money for that. And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. I called my manager, my guy at the time, Ducko McFly, also a producer from here. I was like, Ducko, this cool bald guy named Eric Holt just called, just told me, like, asked me about the opportunity for a tribute show to do some Outkast. Ducko verbatim said, yes. Anytime Eric Holt asks you to do something, you say yes. And so,
well, there's a part that you kind of left out there. And I didn't know about the GP part. I didn't know that you knew him like that. But
yeah.
In hindsight, that makes sense. But you did Spody Odie though on the spot.
Oh, did I really?
Because see, that was the only song that nobody could do.
Oh.
You were the last person I booked for that show.
Oh, that's tight.
That show literally was like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And I didn't know nobody was willing to do that song because it's a difficult song.
Yeah.
And you said, that's my favorite song.
Yeah, I did. That's right.
And
I
you did it right there at Mercy Lounge.
Yeah.
And when you did it, I was like, yo, you got the gig if you want to do it.
Yeah. And then that's when I called Ducko and I was like, hey, Eric said, can I do this? It was like, anything Eric says yes to, you say yes to. And I was like, all right, cool.
And his performance at that Outkast tribute was the best performance that night. Hands down. Hands down. Turn the crowd out. Yeah.
Still on YouTube, the whole thing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great time.
Go to YouTube and look it up. All right, so Eric, tell me what really catches your attention? You know, when you see members of the new generation like Brian, what makes you think someone like him has promise?
Well, you know, as you can tell, Brian has this energy, and from that day that he just articulated, it's the same energy. He's excited about music, excited about being alive, and I always say this with singers and rappers. When young people come up to me and say, "Yeah, man, I want to rap," I always say, "Well, go rap. Like, I should see you. If you want to rap, there's a lot of places you can do it. It doesn't even have to be on the stage." You know, he was mic checking, he was sound checking for somebody else. But it didn't look like he was doing something for somebody else. It looked like he was doing it for himself. And I've been through millions of sound checks and millions of people, seeing millions of artists like himself standing in for somebody who at the time really was a peer. But you would have thought it was his show. And that says something to me. It's like, hey, this guy's serious. Like, he really understands how this stuff works and has been proven correct, because you can see his career, if you follow his career. He takes the music seriously and is passionate about it and contributes to it. So I always look for that energy and that passion. If you want to do it, you should be doing it, even if it's a mic check for somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Well, Brian, why was that moment so important to you?
Go back to Ducko. I remember him telling me one time, you never know who's watching. Whether it's 1 people or 1,000 people, you never know who's in the room. And you just treat the situation and scenario like it's the same. And again, I had a show coming up maybe like a week after that, maybe like that weekend of, I can't remember what it was, but I had a show after that. So what was a legit sound check for us to kind of get some reps in was also I don't know who that guy is, but he is right there by himself making sure everything goes well. The least I can do is just shoot for the stars, and I hope that I aim on the cloud. And that's kind of just been my motto, or at least my thought about it, the whole process. You just never know who's watching. You never know who's paying attention. So if you are giving your 100% best effort 24/7, 365, you never know who will come by and be like, hey, nice to meet you. Or, hey, that was really nice. Where can I find this or that? And then it's up to you to bridge that gap and make those connections and figure out how to smooth sailing to where your destination is from there. But you treat everybody, and you show them the same amount of respect. You treat them one and the same, and all the places you'll go from there, realistically.
Also being willing to seize opportunity when it presents itself.
Absolutely, because if you don't, you never want to live with that what if question. It's one of the worst questions in the world that sometimes when I'm just thinking about my own career, I nitpick about little things, but it's like things happen for a reason. And so at least within that moment, if you decided to just, quote unquote, jump off the porch and at least take that risk and see where you can go, taking that opportunity to make a moment for yourself, you can kind of sleep peacefully at night, knowing, well, hell, at least I tried,
Eric, I want to stick on the fact that you all continue to give opportunities to up-and-coming artists. I understand there was a major show called Underflow where you could have booked a huge national headline artist, but you made sure to give that space to up-and-coming artists like Brian was back in the day. Why did you make that decision?
Yeah, so one of our corporate partners, they had a big budget to do this show, and they had been supporting us on a lot of different levels, but this show was going to be the biggest produced show, the biggest support that they could give. And we had a list of pretty big hip-hop artists that they wanted to book and that we were going to bring to Nashville. So, I said, well, this will just be a concert. If you guys want to do a celebration, there's enough local artists that we could support and sell out Marathon Music Works if you're going to put the money into the production. And they got paid too. They get paid pretty well. Yes, like it was a big show.
We did.
But we with this budget that you guys are going to just throw to somebody and just do a concert with a couple of locals opening, we could have a whole show full of locals and really put energy into the scene. And I'll never forget the corporate meetings I had to go through. But each meeting, it was like 2 or 3 different ones. I won this one over, won that one over. And I remember one of the questions was, we don't know any of these people. I said, but Nashville does. But Nashville does. And it was true.
Yeah.
I mean,
they showed up and showed out that night.
Showed up and showed out.
And still, to this day, probably one of the best produced or kept shows I've ever been a part of in terms of the stage aspect of it. The preparation prior to Ron Gilmore was a huge part in the musical direction of things and making sure each artist, their set was like catered to them and also catered into a almost like tour, like nationwide tour-ish type of feeling and moment. And so shout out to you for that show, because I'd still go back down memory lane and check some of that footage and pictures and think, wow, that I still ain't seen a stage that large or that, professionally lit, sounded that well ever since, Yeah.
And just real quick too on that show, there was another thing that was dynamic about it. It pulled together kind of the roots of Love Noise with Ron Gilmore, and then AB, and Ron mentoring AB to co-produce that. And then the headliner was Tay Keith, DJing at that show. So pulling together all these things together all in one night was amazing.
It was really nice, man.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekolona. We're talking this hour about the Love Noise Project and black music production here in our city. My guests are hip-hop artist Brian Brown, music promoter, and professor Eric Holt. Now, Brian, last month you reached the 10-year anniversary of your first EP.
Crazy.
You kind of went back and forth to Chattanooga, where you're from, right?
Well, born and raised here. My dad is from Chattanooga.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
You kept at this dream, kept putting things out. Music is not an easy path. No. A lot of people try it, then they give up. You've had the ups and downs, but you've kept at it. Tell me, what keeps you going, and what keeps you going here? Why have you stayed here in Nashville?
With the ever-changing landscape that is happening around here all over, whether it be gentrification or the way the music world is changing, you've got country implementing hip-hop and urban cultures, sounds and BPMs and rhythms and melodies. I just feel that it's important to scream from the mountaintop that we exist and we are here no matter what. Plus, on top of that, just when you really genuinely love something, it's kind of hard to fall out of love with it. That's strange. Like, of course, you have your ups and downs with it, but I don't really know. I mean, I know what other things I could be doing, but I don't know what other things would bring that much passion and that much joy in my life. So being from here and knowing that being a Nashville native is almost like a last of the Mohicans thing. I wear it with an honor and wear it with a badge to say, yes, I am a person, a native of Nashville, and I also am from Music City. And it's not just the guitar licks and the cowboy boots that y'all think make up this place. Of course, all three of us know where the term Music City comes from, but your average tourist or your average new resident in Nashville might not know that Fifth Jubilee story. They might not know how big of a city Nashville was during the Chitlin Circuit area. They might not know that Jimi Hendrix has gone on record and said, hey, I had to learn from some of the big dogs in Nashville to kind of earn my stripes and get my stamp. So me growing up embedded, that deeply rooted in me, I had to continue that tradition as best as I can. I had to tell that truth as best as I can, because we know good and well they will whitewash it and try to erase it from all history before we even get a chance to, interject and say those things. So it's just something I wear with pride, and as best as I have my knowledge and can tell the truth based off what I know, and if somebody got some better research to correct me, I'll pass that along until it's time for me to get out of here,
Now, Eric, looking forward for the city, what does this city need next to continue to support Black creativity, Black music creativity? What do we need here?
Yeah, I want to get on my soapbox for 2 seconds.
Got it.
So right now, Nashville has more live music stages than any other city in the country. Maybe Austin might be able to compete a little bit. The number one economic driver of this city is entertainment because of live music. There are no wholly owned African-American live music venues in the city. Not just Broadway, in the city. Now, Rudy's is one of the co-owners is African-American. There's a place called Soul that's co-owned by an African American. There's another place on Jefferson Street, the Elks Lodge, but they don't do music consistently. There's a problem with that. That needs to be corrected. You know, before they put the interstate through Jefferson Street, there are over, you know, to put the interstate through Jefferson Street, over 300 private businesses and homes were destroyed, over half a dozen African-American owned live music venues. That's never been corrected. And that needs to be corrected and addressed. I think Nashville's prime for an outdoor Black music festival, like not just a concert or here or there, but like outdoors, like CMA or Bonnaroo, but in Nashville. It's Music City, right?
Yeah.
It's Music City. Yeah. I think it's time for that. And I think there's room for several of those, you know, several venues. And I think if we could tap into the economic base of Nashville, we being African Americans, I think you'll have a little bit more equitable space and also opportunity to keep pushing the culture forward.
You see that happening anytime soon?
I do. That's a yes.
Blunt, straight up to the point.
I got to dispute that.
I like it a lot. Last question for you, Brian. You know, what's next for you? I know you just recently finished up a new project. With the last time we had you on the show, you talking about that new project. What's happening with that?
Right now, we're just in the processes of figuring out new ways amid this new music medium in the world that we're in now to keep it in front of people's faces as genuinely and as authentically as possible. My birthday's coming up in April, so I might maybe not have something up my sleeves for that. I won't give out too many details on that, but you might have heard it here first on WPLN. This is Nashville. But other than that, just, you know, wherever opportunities are going to take me. A good friend of mine, Tim Gent, he has a writing camp this week that I'll be attending. It's like the 5th through the 8th, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'll be attending a lot of that, you know, making sure I put my hand and my stamp in, because I'm kind of now getting into the sync licensing writing camp world of things. And at first, that world was kind of weird just because it was almost like, do this for us, but now they're kind of like, hey, be you for us. And that's that big of a difference, allowing me to use my pen and my skills and skillsmanship to really express and make us all some money. It's a beautiful thing. So I'm wanting to tap more into that world inside of things. Whatever is working, whatever is lucrative, whatever makes me happy, that's what I'm truly focused on right now. So
Brian Brown is a local hip-hop artist and MC, and Eric Holt is a professor at Belmont and one of the founders of Love Noise. I want to thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it, gentlemen.
Yeah, go ahead. Good seeing you, Mr. Khalil.
You don't got to call me Mr. I feel you. One last break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the resources available to help homegrown artists make it to the next level. Stay with us. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. The Making Noise series, out now, looks at the history of Nashville's Black music scenes and ends by looking forward to what and who is building off the solid foundation already laid here. That's a lot of opportunity, but it also means a lot of work ahead. The city is so full of many talented creative artists, performers, producers, mixers, and others who want to make music. But how does anyone actually find their way from being a dreamer to having an established career? It's usually not an easy road, but there are some people here today who are working hard to make sure that journey is not only easier, it's less lonely. Mimi McCarley is the co-founder of We Own Now. Partner of Nashville is not just country music and owner of Collab Music Network. She works to specifically help local hip hop, R&B, and soul artists find a way and get paid in doing their work, primarily in sync licensing. And Logan Crowell is the founder of Home, a music industry support hub described as a community center for musicians that provides space, equipment, community, mentorship, networking resources for local musicians, and they give them a leg up to making their dreams a reality. Mimi and Logan, thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, so you both work with musicians and artists here in Nashville, but neither of you is a Nashville native. Okay, so Logan, what originally brought you to Nashville?
Music. So I actually moved here as an aspiring songwriter and artist myself.
Okay, from where?
From Arkansas.
Arkansas. When did you come here to Nashville?
2015.
2015.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for you as you got to this town, pursuing a career as a performer, learning about the town and getting your feet wet?
Yeah, I was just immediately flabbergasted by the amount of talent that's in the city. It's very humbling. And I think that most people are coming to Nashville because they were kind of a big fish in a small pond, like in their little local area. They're like the best musician or whatever. And they're like, I'm going to go, do it for real. And that was basically the case for me. And I was just blown away by how much talent there was here and by how good everyone was. And it kind of struck me odd that there wasn't, at the time I was calling it a community center for all of the music people. I kept asking around when I got here. I was like, well, where do I go to like plug in and be around other like ambitious music people and, do the thing? And everybody's like, oh, you just go to bars. Just go to bars and hang out at bars and go to shows. And then you'll just, over time, you'll meet people. And that's how you do it. That's how you do Nashville. That was legitimately the answer by tons of credible people.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh, there needs to be a centralized hub or organization for all the music people, and just started kind of plugging away on how that might happen.
I want to get to what you did with that light bulb moment in a second, but Mimi, what originally brought you to Nashville?
So I'm a graduate of Middle Tennessee State University, so it was music business, not music, but as a songwriter, I learned about MTSU's program, and I was like, what? Somebody teaches you about the music business? I think up until that point, it was like Full Sail and like a few random places that cost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And ever since I learned about MTSU, I knew I was going to transfer and come to Nashville, Murfreesboro. I left for a short while, got married, graduated, got married, left, came back in 2007. 2016, I started Collab Music Network, and as a songwriter, that's where the journey really starts for me as a songwriter, really getting my feet wet and diving in deep with Nashville's creative community, 2016.
For both of you, real quick, did making music here match the expectations you had before you got to town?
I would say it exceeded the expectations that I had, honestly.
Absolutely. I think, in school, there were so many people. I mean, some of the people I still work with today that I met at MTSU, and a lot of people stayed around. So I think MTSU set a really good bar for what Nashville is, a very creative, collaborative community, very easy to work with people, easy to get in rooms. What you do when you get in there, that's up to you.
Now, Brian Sexton, who is in Making Noise, came to Nashville from Chicago in 1999. He's worked in community development and currently works in the mayor's office. He wanted to be with us today, but he had to take care of some things for the mayor's infrastructure proposal to roll out. As I said, he grew up in Chicago. He was used to getting entertainment companies and running into them run by Black executives and artists launching really prosperous careers. He didn't find that when he came here to Nashville. Let's take a listen to his comments.
I was looking for that energy here in Nashville. Where's Black Nashville at? Where's the entertainment space? Where are the labels? And I quickly learned really fast that just simply didn't exist. I mean, one trip up Music Row, stepping off campus and like going up Music Row and not feeling welcomed, not seeing people who look like me.
The one place that Brian found young Black music professionals in Nashville was Love Noise on Sunday nights.
There is hope here in this market, right?
And being in that environment helped him start to figure out what his role in the music scene was going to be. There was a time when he thought he might become a real estate mogul. Instead, he studied urban planning in grad school. And he came to the realization that anyone who wanted to make a career of hip-hop or R&B in Nashville needed more than just stage time.
Because I was studying the community side, I was looking at this trend of how unaffordable our city was becoming. So you had the affordability piece that was bubbling, but then you had access and opportunity. There's only so many Love Noise shows an artist can do. They need a variety of opportunities to really blossom.
That pressure is real for so many music makers. I once interviewed a wildly creative, sci-fi inspired rapper in his living room studio. And when we finished and I gathered up my gear, he told me he was about to pack all of his belongings too. Developers were pricing him out. And I've heard a lot of stories of creative self-sufficiency from hip-hop collectives with little or no access to industry resources. Not even a change-making company like Love Noise could be the sole solution.
So if the infrastructure to support someone's career is not in play, then how do they develop a career? So that is where I saw opportunity. Who's looking at the workforce development opportunity side? Who's looking at the housing side?
All right, so we know success doesn't happen in a vacuum. A lot of people become success. What is it? Famously, India Arie said decades ago, she's a 15-year overnight success.
Absolutely.
Support is needed. You both work to support artists in almost all facets of what an artist needs. Mimi, quickly, tell me about the Music Collab Network. Where did the idea for the business start from?
So Collab Music Network was really birthed out of my need. As a songwriter, I don't play instruments. I don't produce music. At the time, I didn't. I wasn't a beat maker or anything like that. So I had to collaborate with people. And early on, I wasn't good. I was just really inexperienced with talking about my records. Like, I would go into the studio, I would do records, pay money, and I'm like, I walk away with like, what is this? And someone, I think a cousin of mine told me, who is a Grammy Award winning cousin, he says, listen, you are the expert of your music. You have to learn how to communicate your ideas to the people you collaborate with to get what you want. And so it really challenged me to take ownership over the control that I needed to have over making music. So that's where it was birthed out of my need. I needed producers. I needed artists, because I wasn't trying to be an artist. I was just a songwriter. I needed engineers. I needed all the things in place so that I could develop catalog. And so through that opportunity or through that journey, what I realized is that I could throw a rock and find a great songwriter in Nashville. I'm a good songwriter, but I could throw a rock and find great songwriters. And I saw that the hole or the void that was in publishing and the music business. And nobody understood how this business worked. Well, my degree is in music business, so I had to make a choice. Am I going to burn both ends of the candlestick, because that's what I was doing? Or am I going to become great at one thing? And so I chose publishing. And sync licensing particularly, to focus my energy and efforts on, to support all of the songwriters, artists, producers, engineers that I was collaborating with.
Now, Logan, I understand that Home is a trade organization / nonprofit. Briefly, I only have about a couple minutes left. Tell me about Home and what it does for folks.
Sure. It is a comprehensive support hub. So you can kind of think of it like a WeWork for musicians. Is kind of a good analogy that people use a lot. So there's a physical location. People can swipe in with a key card. They can book studios 24/7. There's all kinds of other people there they can collaborate with. And then we kind of took a playbook from like a startup incubator too. So we have tons of workshops, networking hangs. We do pitch opportunities to where people can actually get in front of publishers and label executives and all the different people, managers, agents, all the people that they need on their team. They can actually directly interface with those people.
So you created the opportunities that weren't necessarily here when you got into town.
Right. Yeah. At least, the opportunities were there, but they're just scattered around. And so to have a singular point of entry, and especially to do it as a nonprofit, to where, somebody can just go join, right? It's not a clique that you got to basically be, got to know somebody or something. It's like, if you can, behave like a professional, then there's a home for you to grow as a professional.
It's a nonprofit, so rookies, people just starting out, folks who can only muster together, say $25 for a session, they can afford, they're not prohibited from having a space to record, right?
I would say that might be a little low.
Okay.
It is a trade organization, so we very much aim it towards people that are on the professional track, that aren't just like, I don't know anything, I don't know how to sing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to teach you how to sing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like people should be telling you that you could do it professionally, and that's a good time to join.
All right, real quick, Mimi, then Logan, real quick. 10 to 20 years down the road, what do you think the Music City story will be?
Nashville is not just country music. I think we're going to see more diverse, Music City. I think we're going to see the evolution of Music City and all that it has to offer to the world.
Logan.
I'd like to see the next genre come from Music City.
The next genre.
Whatever that is.
I like both of those answers. I want to thank my guests, Mimi McCarley, co-founder of We Now, and We Now, partner of Nashville is Not Just Country Music, owner of Music Collab, and Logan Crowell is the founder of Home. I want to thank you both for being on the show, and thank you for what you're doing for music in our city.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
That's our show for today. You can catch the full Making Noise series of the WNXP podcast. Just go to WPLN.org to tune in. Thanks to you for listening this hour. Today's episode was produced by Katherine Ceicys and Julie Hight, directed by Katherine Ceicys. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. Masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And the conversation doesn't end here. Tweet us at This Is Nashville. Find us on Instagram and tell us what you want from our show by filling out our quick survey online. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil A. Colonna. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. And be good to each other.